Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and this is sort of a bonus video. There's no topic. It's just a how you doing, get to know you, get to know me kind of video. So I'm just gonna talk for a bit till I run out of stuff to say. This is gonna be a little bit long, maybe 20, 30 minutes in that ballpark. It might run longer depending on how much I feel like talking. But this is just the sort of getting to know me video, you know? Who am I and what am I about? So I'm gonna skim over some of the stuff I've already done full in-depth videos on, and touch on some of the stuff that I haven't talked about too much. I'm also going to be eating pizza and drinking Rockstar energy drink. This video is not sponsored, but if you're curious, it's a thin crust Domino's pizza, which is why it's in these weird triangles. I mean these weird little squares, I guess. Pepperoni, Canadian bacon or ham, sausage, I think Italian sausage, black olive, and onions. It's my standard pizza. Speaking of pizza, I've already done a video on my favorite pizzas, but I'll go ahead and refresh just in case you missed that video. Um, my favorite pizza of all time is pan crust, large meat lovers with black olives and onions from Pizza Hut. That's my favorite pizza of all time. Now, most pizzas I want meat. Always 100% always pepperoni. I can eat a pepperoni pizza by itself, just plain pepperoni. I'm good with that. But sometimes I get pepperoni and black olives. That's another go-to pizza depending on what kind of specials they're running. If it's like cheaper to get a two topping, I'll do that because, money. But um I mostly like meat on my pizza. Now, veggie pizzas, I will not eat a veggie pizza or vegetarian or vegan pizza. Well, vegan, I won't eat, but I have and will eat gluten free crust. And I have had a gluten free, dairy free, soy free, vegetarian veggie meat pizza in the past due to my dietary restrictions because of my medical condition, which I don't want to dig into too deep. Um, it's acceptable. It's not like my go to because it's expensive. But if I'm talking like, that's why I get the thin crust because I'm not really supposed to have too much gluten or bread at all. Actually, I'm not supposed to have it at all. But I can tolerate small samples doses of it. Um, as long as I remember to take my meds and don't eat too much and remember to drink my Gatorade. All right. I've done a video where I talk about how I like cars. And on my toy channel, I show off my Hot Wheels all the time because I have a lot of Hot Wheels. I love Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels are fun. But I've never really talked about what I like in a car or what I want from a car. I do have a future video, my top 25 cars of all time. It's coming. It's not coming anytime soon, but it's on the list. I've already, listed out the cars and come up with what I want to talk about. So, this is going to sound xenophobic, but it's not necessarily xenophobic. It's more patriotic in a way. I like American cars, specifically classic cars, muscle cars, but also cars from the 80s. When I say classic, I mean 70s and older. I guess nowadays 80s cars count as classic, but my interest in cars wanes after the 80s. I do not like the eyeball shaped bug cars we had in the 90s. They're gross and offensive to me. They just don't look good. And this is all across the board, not just the foreign cars and the American cars. Now, on the note of foreign cars, as in not, and it's not about is it made in America or not, or is it made by Americans or not, or does the money go to American cap? It's not about that. It's just the aesthetic. American cars have an aesthetic that I appreciate. Your Japanese cars tend to be um, more like round, and they have a lot of curves, which I don't necessarily like in a car. And your European cars, well, there's so many problems with European cars. I don't want to get into it. Some of it comes from where they come from, as in their, you know, historical ties to Nazis. But also, putting all that aside, I'm very loyal to Ford Motor Company. Loyal in the sense that not only do I mostly buy Fords, as in the I'd say about 30 cars I've owned in my life. Um, let's say 30 cars. Of the 30 cars I've owned in my life, 27 of them, 26 of them were made by Ford. Either Ford directly or by a subsidiary owned by Ford. I'm very loyal to Ford. I'm also loyal to Ford in that when I buy a Ford vehicle, I use Ford branded Motorcraft oil in my vehicle 100% of the time. I'll pay extra for the Motorcraft. Which, yes, as far as classic cars go, I am a fan of the Mustang. Good car. Now, like I said, I mostly like the classic cars and the 80s cars. And that's because I want my cars to look like machines. I want square, boxy, bulky, not aerodynamic, no curves or very few curves. I do not want curves in my car. I do not want eyeball looking headlights in my car. I don't want to look at my car and question whether or not it's an Autobot or not. I don't want that. I don't want cars that look like aliens, which a lot of modern cars do. And don't even get me started on, yes, made in America, Tesla. Fuck off. I can't stand the design of Tesla. I'll never own a Tesla. Now, I understand post 80s cars, 90s and newer, are more better for the environment, they're more energy efficient, economical, etc. I do not like trucks. Now, when I say I don't like trucks, I mean I do not want to drive a truck or own a pickup truck. When I say trucks, I mean pickup truck. I'm talking about a consumer grade vehicle. I do not like trucks. I do like big rigs. I do like dump trucks, fire trucks, semi trucks, buses, especially school buses. I think they're pretty cool. And I do like the Hemi engine, which again is not Ford, and the big trucks with the big diesel engines. Those are pretty cool too. Even monster trucks. Yeah, I'll go to a monster truck rally or a demolition derby. Why not? I want, I do not, if I am an environmentalist by nature, I'm pretty liberal, I'm mostly socialist. Um, Within the confines of we live in a capitalist society and I have to function in a capitalist society um, as best I can. But I want not necessarily a gas guzzler per se, but I want horsepower. Bare minimum, I want a V6, but more likely, I want a V8. I want a car that you can feel it when you turn the engine on. The whole goddamn thing vibrates. and it is so loud. You have to put aftermarket speakers with subwoofers in your car to hear the music over how loud the engine is. That's what I want in a car, in a vehicle. However, I don't necessarily want pickup trucks. That doesn't mean I want small cars because I actually like SUVs and vans. Modern cars, if I'm going to buy a modern vehicle, one, it's going to most likely be a Ford. And two, it's high probability it's going to be an SUV, maybe a compact SUV or something, or a crossover, maybe, or a van. Now, vans are harder to get these days. Um, they still make them, sort of, but they're not as good as they used to be. If I'm gonna buy a van, I want a 1985 Ford Custom, dark gray paint job with black trim, not racing stripes, but black trim. I want a grayish red. It's hard to I can picture it in my head, but I can't really describe it. But it's like a grayish red, gray and red mixture, kind of like a funky shag carpet all over the walls. I do not want seats in the back seat. If I could get rid of the passenger seat, I would. Um, but I want um, a tape deck in it. The cassette, audio cassette tape deck. The audio version of the VHS is what I was trying to say. And I'll be honest, mostly Sony stereo components, but Alpine speakers. Yes. Hmm. It has to have the fold out doors, and it has to have the ladder on the back door with the spare tire rack. Luggage rack optional. I can do without it, but if it has it, I'm not going to complain. Now, passenger cars. I prefer sedans to coupes. I want a four door. I want a V8. When I'm looking at passenger cars, I'm going to stray outside Ford a little bit. I'm looking at Cadillac. But I'm also looking at Ford Crown Victoria. I'm looking at Buick LeSabre. I'm looking at Chevrolet Celebrity. I'm looking at, um, pretty much big cars. Oldsmobile would be Delta 88. In the case of real world car I've owned, at one time I had an 88 Royal Brougham. That was a fine car. I'd be okay having another one of those. You know, obviously with a rebuilt engine and a new transmission and as much new components as I can afford to put in it to keep it, road ready. But yeah, that'd be a pretty cool car to have. But the 1986 Delta 8, no, 88, 87. I have to look it up. It's either 86 or 87 Delta 88 is the one I want. And now for the Delta 88, I want a blue car. I don't care about rims or body customizations. Because it's an Oldsmobile, I damn well want the emblem on the hood ornament. Interior seats, I'm not picky, but I do probably want either a cream or leather. But if I get leather, I want a color leather, like red or black. or, something gray, maybe even. I'd be okay with vinyl. I'd be okay with fake leather, but I don't want the soft cushion. I don't want the carpet, basically. Now for the Delta 88, um, I do want, likewise, a cassette deck. I'm not as picky on the speakers. Uh, I can live with stock speakers in a sedan. I'm okay with that. I don't need to customize it too much. The van, yes, because the van is your rock and roll van. You need a good sound system in your rock and roll van. As far as my Cadillac, my ideal Cadillac would be probably an 86 or 85 DeVille. Um, Probably gray or maybe a shade of blue. Light, not light blue. It's got to be like regular blue or dark blue or, just like not, I don't even know if sky blue would do it. Just like blue, your standard blue. Um, or gray. Again, car gray. I don't know what the technical term is, but car gray. Um, like the darker gray, not the lighter gray. Crown Victoria, I want a 1980 Crown Victoria with a V8. This is one where I want red interior. I'm not as picky about the material on this one. If it's the carpet, fine. I just want red interior and I want a lime green exterior. Um, Customizations, not likely, but if, I was rich and I had it my way, I might put, I might like beef up the engine, with you know, uh, like air intakes and stuff. And I don't know what they're called, but those things that give you more horsepower. Because for a Crown Victoria, I want to be able to go from Mexico to Canada in a day. I want a car that's fast enough to make that trip in a day. I want to fucking fly down the highway, and I want to be able to outrun the police. Um, those are my ideal, like more or less ideal cars. Uh, However, I would still like to have just ancillary. This is, I win the lottery or get successful, make a lot of money, have a big house with a multi-car garage. I'd like to get a couple of Beetles. I want a white Beetle that I can dress up like Herbie, and I want a yellow Beetle that I can paint the Autobot emblems on and have a Bumblebee. If I'm mega rich, which this is daydreaming, I would also get the classic Camaro Bumblebee, whichever model of Camaro he was in the 2007 Michael Bay film. That would be cool to have as well. But that's not one I'm going to go out of my way to get. The ones that I mentioned earlier, my ideal ones, one of those vehicles I'm going to own. One of them from that list. I'm not sure which one, but one of them I will make my forever car. It might even be my next purchase. It might be my next car I buy. I don't know yet. That being said, I'm going to customize any muscle car or V8 engine car that I get to where it has a easily modified so it has an easily removable catalytic converter so that I can attach it as needed for inspections and then get that fucking thing off my car after, we get it tagged. Because cops aren't looking under the hood to see if you have a goddamn catalytic converter. And I know I'm an environmentalist. I don't want a fucking catalytic converter on my car. I want a muffler. I want to feel the vibrations of that car. I want to hear it. I want to smell it. I want the black smoke coming out of my car. I know, contradictory, typical liberal, you know what I mean? But I fucking want that's what I fucking want from a car. Um I will not go so far as to say I will never own a hybrid or an all electric car because I'm pretty sure if I live long enough, there's going to come a time where you won't have a choice. That'll be your only option. Either we run out of fossil fuel or we finally shift to a point where it's going to be hard to find a gas station. Your pretty much only option will be charging stations to charge up your electric cars. We're going to get there as soon as the technology allows and the market catches up to where you know it's viable, economic for businesses and for consumers. We're not there yet. We'll probably get there in my lifetime, but we're not there yet. Now, I did a video talking about crowns and coloring books. When I was a kid, I loved crowns, especially Crayola crowns. I would try to get the 64 crown set. Usually I'd get my school teacher to buy it for me or someone at church or whoever because again, my mom couldn't afford stuff. So she would usually get me the I don't remember what it's called, the dollar store knockoff, the 8 crowns, and I think it was like Act Razor or something like I don't know, Act Razor, something like that. I don't know, School Act or Act One or something like that. It was a stupid knockoff. Those were not good crowns. Now I've already mentioned, um, when I was a kid, I used to chew on the erasers for my pencils. And in a previous video, I talked about how I was obsessed with the Land Before Time, so I used to eat grass as a kid. And, when we were kids, we ate dirt, mud, sand, bugs, whatever. I mean, if you could put it in your mouth, we did. Sometimes it would come back up in the form of vomit. Sometimes it would pass eventually the other way. And sometimes you don't know what happened to it. You try not to ask too many questions because you can't afford to go to the doctor and you really don't want to go to the ER when you're 6 years old because that's miserable. So, you don't ask too many questions. That's a long roundabout way for me to say yes, I did eat my crowns and I did eat Play-Doh. Play-Doh, it's got a taste. It's got a God, how do I describe it? It's not a rubbery taste. You'd think it would be rubbery, but it's actually kind of like, well, I mean, it's dough. So it's a very doughy taste, I guess. Now, crowns obviously have a waxy taste. By the way, don't eat crowns. And teach your kids don't eat crowns. They're gonna eat glue. They're gonna, you can't stop them. They're gonna do it when you're not looking. They're probably gonna do it in preschool or kindergarten, like I did. Glue, um, I did not like the mushy glue, the gooey glue, the white Elmer's glue. Mm-mm. But the glue stick, the pink stuff, oh yeah, ate it like a popsicle. Get it. Like I said, we were poor, so we really couldn't afford candy all that often. So it looked like candy, so I was like, okay, I want a sucker. Mom won't buy me one, so this is all I got. Now, yes, teachers would do their best to try to keep me from putting crowns and pencils and glue sticks in my mouth. And I say do their best as in they often failed. And sometimes, depending on the teacher, I'd end up in detention. Sometimes I'd end up talking to the counselor. And sometimes I'd end up with a note saying, you need to get this kid help, please. They won't stop eating their erasers. Which I'm not going to tell you at what age I stopped eating erasers because it was not kindergarten. Now, when I say eating erasers, I'm not going to demonstrate because I'm not stupid. I would chew the eraser like it was gum, Now, I would swallow my gum kid. So I would chew the eraser until it lost its flavor, which erasers have, I would say, an eraser flavor. I don't know how to describe it, but let's just say I pooped out a few erasers over the years. But I was not trying to eat the eraser. I was trying to get to the metal that attached the eraser to the wood pencil because I liked to chew on metal. Now, this meant I used to put at way too old of an age to admit to. I used to put screws, nails, and coins in my mouth. I used to chew on quarters. Now, dimes I would not chew on because they were small, and you run the risk of, oops, I swallowed a dime. Nickels didn't taste good. They had a weird taste to them. Quarters did taste good. So I would lick the taste off the quarter, which I should not have done because you don't know where that quarter's been. You don't know what kind of germs and other stuff are on it. But like I said, I was a dumb kid. And pennies. Pennies had a copper taste because, I mean, they weren't really made out of copper, but I think they had a copper coating or something. But my mom had an actual copper metal horse, which I tried, uh, licked, and it tasted like pennies. Um, so yeah, they definitely have a coppery taste. Needless to say, I probably swallowed some coins, and I definitely swallowed some screws, especially the itty bitty ones, because I'd stick like one in my mouth and just chew on it and swish it around. Oops, my tongue flicked, or I coughed, or whatever, and oops, I swallowed a screw. Now, usually it was, don't tell mom, it'll pass eventually. Now, sometimes I would swallow a screw that did necessitate an immediate rush to the ER to save my life. That happened on at least two occasions, which my parents were like, "Stop putting metal in your mouth." And I was like, "It tastes good." And they were like, "No, it don't. It's metal." And I'm like, "How do you know? You've never tried it." And they were like, "I don't try it because I'm an adult and I don't eat metal. You don't eat metal, but I'm not an adult." Anyways, that conversation was circular, never went anywhere, not very productive. Now, I still chew on my metal necklaces, as in I'll put it in my mouth and suck on it, but I'm very careful not to eat it, obviously. But I still like the taste of metal. I don't know why. I don't know. Tastes good. Yes, I sanitize them now, but I didn't know what sanitizing meant as a kid. And soap does not taste good. And the only reason why I know what soap tastes like is because I learned the word fuck when I was 5 years old. And that resulted in a bar of soap in my mouth. More than once, unfortunately. Because I like saying fuck you to the teachers when they would send me to the principal's office because I'm going to get detention anyways. Might as well express myself. You know what I mean? Um, so if I'm gonna be in detention anyways, I was like, you know what? Fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. And they would be like, that's it, go to the principal's office. I was like, all right, fuck it. And of course, they're like, stop saying fuck. Although they wouldn't usually say fuck. I had one teacher who did, who literally said, don't say fuck, and he said the word. And then all the kids laughed. And then, of course, I got detention for that. I literally, no exaggeration, literally was in detention every day of my education. Grade school all the way through high school. Sometimes I was in ISS, sometimes I was in Saturday detention, sometimes I had out of school suspension. ISS is short for in school suspension. Sometimes once I got expelled and I had to go to court to get reinstated. That was a nightmare. I did get reinstated, but that was a nightmare because my parents were pissed. Let's just say I took a hockey stick to the face of my bully, and he had to go to the ER, and I had to go to court, and I got expelled. We're not going to elaborate. Look, you have a kid who has a temper, who's bullied, and doesn't want to be bullied anymore, and you hand this kid a hockey stick in PE, you are asking for trouble, dumbass. They shouldn't have handed me a hockey stick. That's on them. That's their fault. They should have known better. They should have said, "We're playing hockey today. You are going to go to the library and read a book." That's what they should have done. But no, they handed me a hockey stick. I'm just saying, use your fucking brain. Speaking of troubled kids, yes, I definitely was. Um, I I'm not gonna get into the how much I was bullied topic because I've gone through a lot of therapy and counseling to try to bury those memories. So I selectively block them out. So I don't like to dig them up, except for as needed, to either prove a point or in a necessary discussion where it's relevant. Which this was one of those cases where I thought, yeah, sure, but I'm not going to get into the details because I really don't want to. Excuse me. I've talked about some of this in my Degrassi video, so go watch that video if you want more in depth, because I definitely go in depth in that video. First car I ever owned or drove, my dad owned it technically. He had the title, but he let me drive it. It was I got my license and he said, "Here, hand me the keys," and said, "Here you go, have fun." Was a 1985 gray Ford LTD, not the Crown Victoria, just the LTD. This car, my friends jokingly referred to as the car that ran on AA batteries. It had an aftermarket tape deck that I hot wired myself, which meant it had duct tape and, well, electrical tape, actually, um, holding it together. There were no bolts, so it was just sitting in the dash, loose. The window handles, because it had crank handles, were broken, and I lost most of them. So I had one crank handle to share. So in the summertime, because it had no air conditioning, obviously, when my friends would get in the car and I would take them for road trips or into town or just cruising around town for the fuck of it, I would have to pass around the handle for my friends to roll their window down. Now, this was before they had the child windows. So this car, the back windows rolled all the way down. So did the front windows. But I had one handle to share. Um, Now, there's a story about this car. I'm going to tell in a future video, but I'm just going to say we used this car to prank one of the police officers in town. And let's just say he did not appreciate our prank. But I'm going to do a whole video on that because there's a backstory and everything. My pizza has been consumed. It hasn't been digested yet. It's digesting as we speak, but it's been consumed. I'm going to keep this video going until this smoke is done because I'm just rambling, and until that rock star's finished. So, buckle up. Hats. I want to do a whole video on my obsession with hats. Now, you've seen in some of my videos me wearing a hat. When I go out in public, I always have a hat on. Now, most of the time, it's going to be my straw hat, my floppy hat. Sometimes I do have a beret that I like to wear from time to time. I do not have, and will never own a fedora or a cowboy slash cowgirl hat. Ever, never, ever, ever. Um, or a top hat. Those are other ones I will not own. But I've had other, you know, like I have the quote breakdancer hat, which is basically like a fisherman's hat. I do have one of those. And I have a lot of ball caps, but all of my ball caps are themed, and only one of them is sports themed, and it's my Chicago Bulls cap, which I have owned the same ball cap since I was a teenager. One of my ball caps I showed off last week on my toy channel, my Super Mario Brothers 8-bit ball cap. I also have a Budweiser ball cap. I have a Monopoly ball cap, which I really love. And then I used to have, actually, I know I have the NWA ball cap, which I got in my, I believe, 25th anniversary bundle of the Straight Outta Compton CD that I got at Hastings because it came with the ball cap. I used to have a Chronic ball cap, which was the one with the pot leaf on the front that Dr. Dre wore in his music videos when he promoted the Chronic. I don't think I still have that ball cap anymore. And without looking, I don't know which other ones I have. Most of them are from local stores in small towns because I like to collect things from small towns. So like the gas station was selling ball caps with their logo on it, I would buy it. Or if like, I don't know, the local hardware store was selling a ball cap with their logo on it, I would buy it. Things like that. Cause I'm a sucker for like local memorabilia, like Americana. I'm a sucker for Americana. I've talked about this in my pagan gods video. One of the pagan gods I revere is Columbia. Well, now I do revere Libertas, who is the Roman god that Lady Liberty, the Statue of Liberty, is based on. Now, there's also a god that was, or goddess, I should say, that was used in Americana. Well, I would say propaganda, but also memorabilia for a while, which was Columbia. Um, it's debatable if Columbia was a god that was made up by some guy or if he was visited by Columbia and, you know, I guess would be her prophet and told people about her, or if she was like maybe related to the great spirit that existed on this land that the Native Americans um worshipped or revered, I guess, and she was the European manifestation of that. I don't know. I'm not going to define my views on Columbia, but I have a very specific pagan American Americana pagan ritual that it does involve American flags and candles that I do when I want to um we'll just say ask favors of Columbia. But I also have in that ritual um a offering, we'll say, to Libertas, just because some people consider Columbia to just be another representation of Libertas, and I'm not opposed to that. I just um, Columbia just happens to be one of my 12 deities. Whether or not she's I'm not gonna say legit because whatever you believe is legit to you, but whether or not she is a manifestation of a different entity or her own entity is up in the air, and I'm not going to be the one to make that judgment call. Unless or until either her or whatever spirit she's representative of visits me and tells me one way or the other, which I don't expect that to happen. But if it does, that's fine. Um, the only gods or deities that I revere who have manifested themselves to me in a tangible way, and I'm not going to get into the details, who have spoken to me one way or another, would be Joshua, who speaks to a lot of people because he's a very hands on deity. Joshua is what the Christians call Jesus. He's one of the deities I revere or talk to, but he's not the only one. Brigid, who is my mother goddess, who I did a ritual to invite her into my heart and basically dedicated my life to her, has definitely manifested herself. Mostly, I will say, in dreams, but not exclusively in dreams. You can use your own imagination to fill in the blanks. Lilith has manifested herself in her own way, but she is, I will say, not cryptic, but she's very protective of her um identity, not identity, but she's very private, I guess. I've had conversations with Freya, which are usually like along the lines of I'm listening, but I'm not listening intently, you know? And I do regularly converse with Gaia, the mother of the earth, and I do regularly converse with tree ants or tree spirits, and also, the Fae, elves specifically. Occasionally I'll try to talk to a leprechaun, but I'm very cautious about that. But leprechaun, or not leprechauns, but the Fae in general, I am, I welcome the Fae in my house. Specifically the little people, or the house spirits, if you will. Some people refer to them as house spirits. They're welcome in my house. They respect our boundaries, the boundaries of those who live in this house. Uh, but I'm gonna be honest, they're tricksters. They do, they do occasionally pull pranks on us and make their presence known. I do not ever ask the Fae for favors. You do not do that. You do not negotiate with the Fae. If you're willing to invite them into your house, set boundaries and say something along the lines of, you're welcome to visit, but please only observe. Make it clear they're welcome to observe your house. Because the Fae have a habit of, um, I don't want to say twisting things to their favor, but they do have a habit of ensuring they get the upper hand in any request you make of them. So be careful when talking to the Fae or dealing with the Fae, especially leprechauns, because they're tricksters by nature. So be very careful if you invite a leprechaun into your house. Uh, I would caution you against letting a leprechaun in your house, unless you're like in Ireland, because it's their homeland. They have a right to be there. And in which case, it's like, yeah, sure, come on in. Just please be nice and offer them gifts to keep them happy, so that they do play nice. Because you don't want to piss off a leprechaun. Cryptids. I'm gonna do a whole video on cryptids, but I am of the belief that we cannot definitively rule out the existence of cryptids, and this is because we keep discovering new species of creatures all the time. This earth has not been as thoroughly explored as some people think it has. There are whole sections of this planet we've never been to, humans, whether via robots or satellites or drones or whatever. There are whole sections of this planet we've never even touched or observed or measured or visited. So that you cannot, nobody, not even Neil deGrasse Tyson himself can rule out the existence of cryptids definitively. I do believe that there are spirits that cannot be classified. Some people may refer to them as demons. They go by other names in different cultures. I believe these spirits are otherworldly travelers that come from either another universe or another dimension or another plane of existence that we can't in our human brains comprehend, nor can we at least with the current technology and magical abilities some of us possess, access those planes directly. Um, I am not opposed to conversing with demons, and I have an agreement with Lilith, who does allow me to tame succubi as pets. I do not name my succubi. You do not name demons. Uh, and never, under any circumstances. So, I guess we were talking about, well, we were talking about cryptids and stuff. So let's change the subject. I got distracted by the phone call, so I forgot where I was. I want to talk about some of the toys that I had as a kid that weren't action figures or dolls or people toys. You know, cars, trucks, things like that. So, one of the toys I remember having as a kid that I loved that I wouldn't get any use out of, obviously, today as an adult, um, but it was the Etch a Sketch. And I had thought about doing a dedicated video either on this channel or my toy channel to the Etch a Sketch, but I'm just going to mention it here and say I had one as a kid. I have zero artistic talent in regards to how to use an Etch a Sketch. So I was never able to do anything meaningful with it. I just usually like scribbled stuff and then shook it and scribbled stuff and shook it and just rinse repeat did that. Now I did not have a light bright at home, but as part of my physical therapy due to one of my disabilities, I um did have regular access to a light bright in school during my physical therapy sessions. So I regularly played with a light bright, and I do own a modern light bright, which I'm going to be honest, I kind of want an old one because of the nostalgia, but the new one is sufficient for my needs. Now, on more than one occasion, because we were poor and didn't have a lot of money, on more than one occasion, either Christmas or birthday or whatever, my parents, well meaning as it was, did get us the dollar store version of the Slinky and the dollar store version of the yo yo. Um, Now we in the 90s we got the special neon glow in the dark yo-yos, which were kind of neat. But 100% of the time, my yo-yo never worked because of my disability. I am not coordinated at all, and my attempt to yo-yo always somehow, and I don't know how, don't ask, I'm not going to demonstrate, would result in the goddamn thing getting tied up in knots within 5 minutes of me getting the goddamn toy. And I would usually throw it against the wall and beg my parents to never buy me another yo yo. Which, they never listened because I know I got more than one yo yo for Christmas and or birthdays growing up. But I very specifically remember the neon yo yos, which were like the cool new toy that holiday season. Which it was like, no, it wasn't. But the assholes on making the commercial on TV wanted you to think it was the cool new toy, but it wasn't. As far as Slinky goes, do you remember the line in Ghostbusters 2 where Egon said, I had a part of a Slinky once, but I straightened it? Well, not because he said that line, but because somehow, don't ask me how, my Slinkies always ended up, again, tied up in knots, and usually required, because they're fucking made out of metal, although sometimes we got the plastic knockoff Slinkies, which, ugh. The, the metal Slinky necessitated the use of metal cutters, which in this case would be wire cutters, to untangle the goddamn thing, which usually left me with pieces of metal that could not be assembled into a proper slinky. So the slinky was another one of those toys that was a mistake for my parents to give me because I did not have the physical capabilities of properly playing with a slinky. And again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of my disability, just that I am very uncoordinated. And so Slinky was another toy I was begging my parents to please stop buying me. And because my dad had a Slinky when he was a kid, he kept buying a Slinky. And he was always like, don't break this one. And I'm like, I can't make that promise, dude. I can't. Um, it was more like, look, you know I'm going to break it, so don't spend your money buying it for me. Just buy me something else. Give me a Hot Wheel. Something, anything. Just stop buying me Slinkies. Now, I did have an electronic Simon once, but let's just say, uh, same story I just told you twice in a row now. Let's just say the Simon became a projectile weapon rather than an electronic device I was proficient at. And it hit the wall and became a pile of plastic bits and pieces. And that was another toy my parents learned to never buy me again. That one was expensive enough, they knew not to repeat their mistake. So I guess lesson learned. Now, actual frisbee or knockoff frisbees that are, frisbees but not brand name frisbees, usually I would take to the park and lose. And so that was another toy my parents learned not to buy me. Um, for whatever reason. I guess they wanted us to have toys, but like they didn't have the money to buy me Transformers and Ninja Turtles. So they would get me dollar store crap because, whatever. I can't blame them for that because it was like they did the best they could. But also, you know what? If you know you only have $3 to spend on my birthday and you know you can't buy a Transformer for $3 because they're like $5 or whatever, just throwing dollar amounts out there, then why not delay my birthday party a couple of paychecks until you have that extra buck or two to buy me a Transformer, instead of buying me a piece of plastic that's going to get destroyed. That was, my kid logic, but I didn't understand how money worked as a kid. So obviously I couldn't express that plan to my parents very articulately, but it was mostly along the lines of I just want a transformer. And I don't care if it's a GoBot. I don't care if it's a dollar store transformer. I don't care if it's one of those transformables or whatever they're called. I just want something that starts as one thing and turns into another. That's all I wanted. I wanted robots as a kid. Ninja Turtles were whatever. They bought me a lot of Ninja Turtles. I liked the cartoon because I liked the video game. So I was okay with having Ninja Turtle toys, but I wasn't like gonna play with them except for the robots because I was obsessed with computers and robots and video games and technology and electricity and plastic and metal and stuff like that. You know, um, one time because my dad finally figured this out, he gave me an old radio that didn't work. He gave me a screwdriver and basically said, "Here, play with this." And needless to say, I was able to take it apart, clean it up, and make repairs on my own with no knowledge of electronics. I was just able to like look at it and say, this thing is broken, let's fix this. This looks like it's bent, let's straighten this out. This looks like it's been disconnected. Let's, uh, okay, you don't want to do this, but let's, put some bubble gum on it and connect it back together. Anyways, I got the radio to work. I was only able to use it as an AM radio because I never could repair the FM tuner for whatever reason, but I did get the AM tuner to work. So I was able to listen to AM radio stations, which we were fortunate enough. The city we lived in, the town, I should say, we lived in, was close enough into proximity to a bigger city, in this case, Topeka. We were close, because I lived in Kansas. We were close enough. I was able to pick up a Topeka radio station that was a simulcast of a local network television station, so I could listen to the audio of TV shows on the radio. Um, it only was able to pick up that one station, and I don't even know why that station was broadcasting um, the audio only from the network, and I don't remember what network it was. Probably Fox. I don't know why that was, but it was one of those deals where I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and listen to Kate and Allie. I can't watch the show, but I'll listen to it. I was proficient enough with electronics that when our NES um, stopped working correctly because of the connector issue. Now, I was, like I said, proficient, not necessarily intelligent. I was not educated, so I didn't know better. But I knew enough about the NES to know that there were metal connectors on the cartridge, and that plugged into a metal connector inside the machine. So when the machine wasn't, the connectors weren't connecting properly, and I was getting either a scrambled picture or the god awful bane of every NES collector, the infinite blinking lights, and assuming the spitting in the cartridge didn't work, and rubbing it with alcohol didn't work. Two things that Nintendo themselves advised you not to do, but we all did anyways. I took aluminum foil bubblegum wrappers and pressed them into my NES cartridge and stuck them in to guarantee I got a solid connection, which let's say it worked, but there were sparks and there were unwanted side effects. Usually scrambled graphics, or the colors were off, like Mario would be pink and the sky would be green and the Koopas would be yellow, things like that. But I was just happy to be able to play my Nintendo games until the time came that my parents bought me a fully functioning Sega Genesis, which I never had to hack to use. And I was like, huh, maybe Nintendo sucks. So I developed an animosity towards Nintendo at an early age just because kicking the machine didn't work, punching the machine didn't work, spitting in the machine didn't work, sticking a screwdriver in the machine, don't do. That didn't work. Every trick I tried, even if it did work temporarily, was never um it never operated as intended. So I developed an animosity towards the NES because I was like, Jesus Christ, these goddamn things never function. And to this day, I've never owned a functioning NES. Never. And I'll never own another one. I will never own another NES. Not even a knockoff, not even a retro clone. I am done. Like past tense over the NES. I will play those games on my laptop using an emulator, and that is the only way I will play those games. Because I swear to God, if I ever get to the last castle in a Mario game just for it to start blinking, not only am I going to throw the machine across the room, uh, wasting the money I spent on it, but I'm probably going to stomp that cartridge into the ground, which is going to be bad for collectors because that's one less copy of whatever game that is. So to prevent that from happening, I'm just done with the NES. So I'm almost done with my second cigar, but I still got some Rockstar left. So let's keep going. This is a getting to know me video. That's the whole purpose of this video. So if you're still watching, thank you. Legit thank you. And please leave comments on the parts that you enjoyed. Or if you were like, oh, girl, what was wrong with you as a kid? Remember, I said I was neurodivergent. And I have disabilities, physical and mental disabilities. So, yes, I was not your stereotypical normal kid. And to be fair, looking at how the normal kids treated each other, I'm glad I wasn't. Because they were dicks. Even the girls were bitches. Like, kids are awful. Kids are evil in the flesh. They are not cute. They are not your friend. They are not adorable. They're fucking monsters. They're teeny tiny little monsters. Which consequently is why they make great horror villains. So, anytime a horror movie has a creepy kid, one, I'm like, yeah, you little bastard. But I'm also like, yes, I'm terrified of you. This is a scary movie. And I did work in a daycare center. Not for very long. Not because I did anything inappropriate or anything, but just because I didn't have any certifications or licenses or first aid or anything. So I was only hired as an assistant to the teacher, and I was hired through the summer semester, which was a temporary seasonal job. So once the season ended, they were like, yeah, we don't have anything else for you to do. Goodbye. This is one of the reasons why I do not currently have kids. And I do not have plans to ever have kids because I just don't trust myself to be able to provide them with a home environment that is conducive to their one, survival, and two, um, a proper, upbringing. I just don't have that. That's just a skill set I do not possess. I'm okay babysitting my sister's kids for like an hour or two at a time at most. Because all I'm going to do is put on a movie on Netflix and we're just going to watch a movie. That's it. I'm going to make them some popcorn and we're going to watch a movie. And that's easy. I can handle that. But you can't put a kid in front of Netflix and expect them to have a proper childhood 24 hours a day. You got to kind of, feed them and clothe them and take them to school and Little League and all that stuff. No thanks. That's just beyond my capabilities. So I do not have kids. Consequently, or going a step further, I am asexual, which means I have no sexual attraction to other people. I do not get hard ons. I do not get um, turned on. I do not get sexually motivated. I do not think of people in a sexual manner. So, yes, I am a virgin and I'm going to die a virgin because the whole idea of sex repulses me. Even the solo sex is something I'm just not interested in. I have, like most people, especially when I was going through puberty, tried stuff, found out it didn't do it for me, and I moved on. And I am 100% honest, and you can call me a liar, and I will give you a middle finger. I do not look at pornographic materials. I do not have a whatever, Pornhub or whatever the site is I see on Twitter all the time, or OnlyFans or any of those. I do not have those accounts. I do not watch triple X rated adult movies or anything like that. Yes, I'll watch a slasher movie with nudity in it because, I like slasher movies and the nudity is, a part of it. But I'm not sexually attracted to people of either sex, male or female. Now I am biromantic, which means I can develop romantic feelings and have intimacy with another human being of of pretty much any sex or gender. Um, when I say sex, I mean sexual orientation or gender. So I can have a romantic relationship with a heterosexual male, a heterosexual female, a homosexual male or female, pansexual, bisexual, or whatever. As long as they understand there's going to be close to zero physical contact. Now I say close to zero. I can hold hands for a period of time. I am not snuggling. I am not cuddling. I am not laying my head on your shoulder. We are only hugging in emergencies when one of us is in an emotional crisis, and the hug is just a quick pat on the back, and it's okay. It's not a full-on embrace, cry on my shoulder. That, because I'm touch averse, that's not going to happen. I, even if hypothetically I was in a committed long-term, well, I won't say marriage relationship, but let's say I lived with my partner. Um, we are going to sleep in separate beds. This is just the way it is. I am not having another person in my bed. That's just never going to happen. I allow my cat to sleep in my bed, but mostly because one, I can't really stop him because once I'm asleep, he just does what he wants. And two, I roll around a lot and he knows not to touch me or try to get on my back while I'm asleep because he's going to get crushed. So he sleeps either by my side or at my feet, where he is relatively safe. Although he has been kicked in the face more than once, unfortunately. But like I said, I can't stop him from getting in my bed once I'm asleep, and he has learned where he's safe or safest, and he has learned where he's not safe, and he knows to avoid the not safe zones. He's a smart cat, which he's right here, by the way. You might be able to see his ear bobbing into the camera. This is my cat. His name is Buddy. His full name is Johnny Cage Buddy Kins, last name withheld for privacy reasons. Um, because I gave him my last name, because he's my baby. All right, I'm done with my cigar. I've had 2 cigars. I've rambled quite a bit. This video is a little over an hour now. So I'm sure, unless you were just watching this as an ASMR, I guess, or you were really curious about my life, you're probably bored or stopped watching by now. So have a good day and stay cool.